Good evening and welcome to this evening's Committee of the Whole. The time is 6:30 p.m. and the date is June 24th, 2024. We have one item on the agenda this evening for the Committee of the Whole, and that is a presentation from ComEd regarding electric utility performance and reliability within the city of Rolling Meadows. I also have one signatory on the sign-in sheet this evening regarding this topic, and so I'm going to have we'll open up the floor for public comment to have that comment be presented, so that way if there are any items of concern from that public comment, it can then be addressed by a representative here from ComEd, Mr. Joe Turnage. So with that, I will establish the rules of procedure regarding public comment. Per our rules of procedure, the public is to address the City Council, and the fact that no member of the City Council responds does not mean that the City Council or any member thereof agrees or disagrees with the comment. In order to attain this objective, the following rules of conduct are hereby established. First, that any person who seeks to address the City Council at this time for public comment shall be permitted to speak only upon recognition of the presiding officer, and such person shall adhere to the following provisions. First, that each person addressing the City Council shall state their name for the record. Each person shall be granted no more than 5 minutes of the allotted 20 minutes in order to address the City Council. Questions and/or commentary shall be limited to city business. Comments supporting or opposing a nominated person's candidacy for elective office of the city shall be out of order. Commentary shall be directed to the presiding officer unless the presiding officer permits the individual to address the council members or other city officers present. Discussion shall take place in a professional manner which displays mutual respect, and profanity shall not be used in any form or manner. And with that, I have...
Can't read my handwriting.
Yes, could you state your name for the record? Are you? Oh, yes. Please approach the podium. And then if you want to just move the mic and then present your public comment. I have Deputy City Clerk Brose, who will be then timing the comment for 5 minutes, and she'll let you know when you have 30 seconds left.
Oh, okay, great. I wasn't really anticipating doing anything. I was actually coming here just to kind of find out what ComEd was, going to do with the power problem we have. I'm on Adams Street in Rolling Meadows, so the other side of Rolling Meadows. I've lived here 30 years. When I moved in, there was a problem with the power. It went off consistently, I'd say, at least one time a month. Through the years, we've just kind of suffered through it, tried to figure out how we can afford a Generac or whatever. Joe here has recently been contacting me because of the comments I've made on Facebook and the numerous complaints I've said to ComEd. Continually, when I call to report an outage, I get the same message, which is the 38 houses are affected in your area. 38 houses are affected in your area. This is affecting 38 houses, which tells me it's the same 38 that has been 30 years ago when I moved in. So nothing's changed. Again, like I said, Joe's been pretty good about coming out or having me give him details of when the power is out. I do get texts on my phone. So I'd say last month it was out twice. It does not include the times when the power just goes out for a few seconds and comes back on, enough to give like the capacitor in my air conditioner a power surge so it continues to blow. So I am concerned about this because I feel I'm at the point now, because it is so inconsistent, and with EV coming along and stuff like that, I don't feel like we have a Chinaman's chance to actually ever have an EV. I can't rely on the power for almost anything. I would say in the last month it's gone out for a period of time. When I'm saying that, I mean an hour or so, twice. They did send a ComEd gentleman out, I'll say 3 weeks ago. When he came out, he looked at the side of the house and said to me, "Oh my gosh, your meters are so old. This is terrible. I'm terrified to touch anything on the outside because your meters are so old. I'm not going to look at your neighbor's house. That's also old." And I said, "Well, whose job is it to fix the meters then? My house is 65 years old, but if I'm paying my bills and the meter needs to be fixed, and maybe that'll help this problem, I don't know." He wasn't willing to really touch anything or look into it further. He did make a comment, however, that the 38 houses are on what they call the first phase of a 3-phase power. And he said that the first phase, which I'm the unfortunate one of the 38 to be on, has been damaged, and so it consistently goes out. There's a weak spot in it. I mean, because it goes out when we don't have weather. you know, it's 72 degrees and sunny. There is no weather for it to be affecting it. So I appreciate the time. I'd like to stay here in Rolling Meadows, but it's getting tough with the inconsistent power and me thinking it's going to cost about 18 grand to get a Generac. So I appreciate your time.
Thank you. And before you leave the podium, just can you state your name for the record for the clerk?
I can.
Thank
Dawn
you.
Brynelson.
Thank you very much, and
Thank
thank you
you.
for coming out this evening. We have no other signatories on the sign-in sheet for this item, so at this point, then, we do have Mr. Joe Turnage from ComEd, who will be able to address, then, hopefully, all of the concerns that you've brought up this evening, as well as some general reliability throughout the city. I know that we have had residents who have reached out to several of our aldermen, and so we do have some questions, then, for ComEd to make sure that everybody has consistent utilities. Whenever you're ready, I believe you have a presentation as well.
I do, yes.
Okay. And we'll check to see that we have that presentation up.
There we go. All right, so thank you, board, for having me here today. And I also want to thank you, Dawn, for coming out and letting us know the issues that you're having with the overall reliability. What I'm going to present today is the overall Village Annual Report, which will talk about reliability and some of the things that we're doing to continue to enhance the different circuits in Rolling Meadows. Sorry. And at the end of that, I also put together a little something to talk about the reliability concerns that you guys have been hearing and from what we've been hearing from Dawn and a couple of other residents in those areas. So we'll start with the annual report. That changes here, but it doesn't there.
Yes, there's a slight delay for
okay,
the
okay.
broadcast.
Okay, so as I stated, I'm going to talk a little bit about system reliability, and then I'm going to talk about the different enhancements that we're doing, and then I'll give you guys a summary of that piece, and then once I'm done there, I'll go into the reliability part for the different residents. So this, I'll wait for that chart to show up. There we go. All right, this chart here gives you an overall assessment of what reliability has been since the earlier 2020 going up to 2024. And the top chart focuses on overall system reliability, and the bottom part focuses on particular customer reliability. And as you guys can see, in 2024, well, let me jump back a second. If we go to that top line, overall, you guys received a total of 99.99% overall reliability in Rolling Meadows. So we know that we have those other items that we have to address, but overall, the reliability in Rolling Meadows is pretty good. Okay. This chart here talks about what caused the outages that you just looked at on the previous slide. So if you look down at the bottom line, 2024, and you scroll over, you'll see that most of the outages that you guys experienced was due to overhead equipment. Now, overhead equipment, can be different types of outages. Most of the time it's due to some faulty equipment or something like that. And we get out there and we replace those things right away to make sure that we can keep the power flowing properly. It's that purple line there, that's the one that you guys will be focused on for 2024. Now, to further enhance our system, these are the things that we've done. So this document here talks about the different cable replacements that we've completed, and it also focuses on what we're planning to complete in 2025, coming from 2024 into 2025. This slide here talks about, or it actually gives the number of pole replacements that we've done in the city. Again, all of these things that we're doing right now is to continue to maintain that 99.99% reliability rate. Now, another thing that we do is something called thermography inspections. And what that is it's a heat sensing device that we use to patrol our circuits. And when we patrol those circuits, we're looking for areas or equipment on those circuits that may be overheating, and some of it may be cracked or something like that, and it'll create an arc in a lot of cases because we have some porcelain that's on the system as well. And to prevent a full-blown outage, this method is used so that we can identify those items sooner than later, of course, and get them replaced expeditiously. In terms of our vegetation management, this screen here talks about the tree trimming that we did in 2024, and it also talks about what we have planned in 2025. Some of the 2025 items is already complete. Okay. Any questions about what we've just recently talked about in terms of overall reliability that I can answer right now before we get into the next segment?
Are there any questions from the council regarding the system enhancements timeline? Yes, Alderman O'Brien.
Thank you, Mayor. Thanks again, Joe, for joining us tonight. Is there a correlation between slide 3? Because if I'm understanding the top grid correctly, 0.56% of the outages were non-storm related by the blue color. But then when we go to the next, so if it's overhead related but not storm related, is that a maintenance issue?
Yes, that would be some maintenance items.
I'm clearly not an electrical expert by any means, so that's why we'll defer to you and our staff that are. Okay. So it's a maintenance thing to the young lady's earlier point, and I'm sure you'll get to that. But just it seems like routine maintenance. If I looked quickly too, I'm going to combine a couple thoughts. The pole replacement, if my quick count was correct, is about 14 of them.
Yes.
I'm guessing that's got to be less than 10% within this. So is there a routine maintenance plan? And you might be going into that, so just tell me, wait till the end for questions, for ongoing maintenance, like a car oil change that next year there'll be 14 more poles replaced or whatever might cause the overhead non-storm related outages?
Yeah, a lot of the poles that we're it's not routine per se. We
Okay.
inspect our equipment all the time. So when we go out and we find a pole that, after we've inspected, of course, that needs to be replacing, then we don't, even though the pole is still might be in good condition, to our standards, it doesn't meet our standards at that time, so we replace it at that point.
Okay. So it is just, so I understand the graphs correctly, since 0.56 of the outages were non-storm related and majority were above ground.
That's correct.
Okay, thank
Correct.
you.
The
Thank you,
other
Mayor.
piece that I want to point out is you also have a 0.56 in red. That part represents I think it was June 14th, 15th, and 16th of last year. There was a big storm. So just that part represents that storm. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
No problem.
Of course. Any other questions? Yes, Alderman Kohler.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Sorry. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just help me understand. I'm back at slide 3, which is the one you have up there.
Yes.
Help me understand what is on the vertical. What's the scoring? The 0 to 2. What are those numbers?
The 0 to, on the left-hand
The
side?
y-axis, yeah.
Okay. That is the top one represents the amount of time that the outages were out. The bottom part represents the number of customers.
Okay, so time is in minutes?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it says, hey, okay, now going over to, let's just look at 2024. It says 0.56. What does that mean? Does that mean
That piece is broken down in seconds then, when you get to that part.
Okay. So honestly, I believe probably 99.99 reliability is correct because I'm assuming you took it by minutes or seconds
Yes.
down, right? So that's a very short minute or two, but those are always annoying, by the way,
Understood.
when they go down. And it seems like, personally, it seems like my power goes out maybe a couple times a year, but only for short periods of time, and then it comes back on. Is that your understanding of these incidences?
Yes, and what we'll talk about on the next slide is I'll give you guys an overall view at a very high level of how our system works, because a lot of times when you guys get those momentary interruptions, it's really our system acting as it's designed to, and it's preventing you from experiencing a full-blown outage of another circuit that may be on the same bus work at one of our substations.
Okay. I'm very fortunate in my neighborhood where we have underground wires, so we don't have as much as I think
On the overhead side.
on the overhead side.
Yes.
So we have underground, and when it does go out, it's a pretty wide region. Meaning it's usually a tree or something like that goes down. So I believe your data. Is there some way that you could see? I don't know. I tried to look it up before we came to the meeting and I couldn't. For a specific area, how many outages occur a year? Numbers, not minutes, but numbers. of outages?
In area, I mean, yes, I mean, we can always look at circuits and see where those circuits are, which for this presentation, for the next presentation, I didn't include the circuit numbers for proprietary reasons, but it will look at areas, so.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Of course. Are there any other questions? Okay, none at this time, so feel free to continue with the presentation.
All right, thank you. All right, so this is the reliability investigation that we conducted since we started hearing about the other items that the residents was reporting to us. So what I'm going to talk through with this presentation is the background of what's transpired. We're also going to take a look at the overall outage history, and we're going to look at the recently completed and upcoming work that we're going to perform, and then we'll go through a brief summary. Okay, so we know that 3 residents reported that they were continuously having outage reliability concerns. We have our 4387 Wilson Avenue, 2135 Adams Street, and 2104 Adams Street. Now, the outages, of course, may not be specific to just these residents. It could be more on that in that area because all of them are on a particular circuit. Okay, and then the arrows on the screen there indicates where they're located. So for this here, we have a couple of definitions. We have our sustained outages, which are more of the longer range outages. We have our momentary interruptions, which is somewhere between 0 to 5 seconds. And then we have our voltage sags that really isn't an outage. Of course, the lights dim and then they come back up. And then we'll talk about those things in detail. The descriptions on the right is pretty much a diagram of what things are positioned in our substation. I have a couple more designs too to give you guys a even further indication. All right, so early on I was giving the example of what happens when you experience an outage or when an outage happens at our substations. Chart 1, the first one there, the example of a reclosure event. So when an outage occurs on the line that's labeled common bus at substation, so what happens is, and I'll just use the letters that are up there. If letter C experience an outage, a reclosure device opens up and it sends a voltage through that bus line up top, and that's where the other circuits. So even if there's a full-blown outage on circuit C, circuit E and D could feel the voltage reduction from it. But again, the system is designed so that everyone on that bus work does not experience a full-blown outage, which is what happened for circuit C in this case. Now, if there's a voltage sag, that means that whatever happened on the circuit or any one of the circuits A through E wasn't enough to cause a full-blown outage or for the power to drop below a certain kilowatts. So people's breakers may not have tripped at that point. That's when you just get the voltage sag and then it comes back up. Any questions about that before we move forward? Okay.
None from the council.
All right. All right, so now getting into a little bit more detail about the 3 residents. Like I said, I focused on these 3 because these are the 3 that I've had communications with those customers, and I specifically looked into our records to try to identify what was going on when they reported them to me. So as you can see, what we found is that what they have been experiencing is aligned with outages on other circuits. Okay, so for example, 4387 Wilson, on 6/4, there was a wire down due to a broken insulator. We were talking about equipment early on, so we had a broken insulator. And then 6/3 and January 30th of this year, both those other items was related to vegetation. And then when we look at 2135 Adams Street, again, we had a wire down, vegetation. And for 2104, we had more outages, of course, but again, we were able to associate those outages with different events that occurred on our system. So in terms of the voltage sag, these are all the ones that our system identified. And again, each one of these were also tied to the different outages that occurred. And what do we have? We have 12 of them here. So now I'm going to get into the recently completed and pending projects that we're conducting, because again, these things have been reported to us, and of course we want our customers to have overall reliability, high-end reliability at all times. So this is what we've identified thus far. We're going to continue to look into this to make sure that there are no underlying conditions that are causing the residents to have these power interruption issues. So we recently completed visual and thermal inspections, secondary service inspections and testing, and construction and maintenance items, which is what we have here. From guy wire repair, replacements of cross arms, etc., and arresters. And of course, we continue to do our thermography inspections, and we specifically did that on the circuits addressing the three residences that I had listed before. Recently, we completed some reconductor items and some resiliency, and we also installed a disconnect on particular circuits. So these are the pending things that we're going to be doing. And again, we're doing these things for the purpose of further increasing reliability. And what we're doing is taking a slightly different approach. We've looked at those residents that were having those concerns, and we couldn't find much, but what I'm thinking is that if we target those other circuits and do some things around those, by default, it's going to increase the reliability of those residents. So even though they're on a specific location, overall they should still be receiving a good reliability, which we want to make sure that we're adhering to that. So we're going to continue to do more tree trimming. We're just going to do more tree trimming around those other circuits, because we looked at the ones that are for those residents, and those circuits appear to not have a problem in terms of vegetation. We're going to also do some upgrading of transformers. We're going to install some wildlife protection. We're going to help save the wildlife in addition to that too, because they do have the tendency to cause outages on our circuits as well. We're gonna install spacer cables. Sometimes what happens is, especially during high wind events and storms, the lines start moving, and if they get in really close proximity of each other, that can also cause an unplanned outage. So when we put those spacer devices on there, it keeps those cables spaced away, so that when those high wind situations start, it doesn't impact the cable at all. And then on this page, I also have some estimated completion time frames for these pending projects. All right, so in summary, we're still going to continue to look at this. The residents that had those concerns, they have my phone number, by the way, and I'm okay with that, Don. Nice speaking with Don. And we want to continue to make sure that we're addressing those. So what I've asked them to do is, when they experience those momentary interruptions, to just call me up, because then we want to start taking a look at that in real time and try to find out at that point what may be happening so that we can address it. Okay? With that, any questions?
Alderman Bud Matts.
Thank you.
We'll just move your
I've
mic.
listened to about 7 of these reports now, every year from you, about how it's 99.9%, how it's 99.9% of the time that the power works. And I'll tell you what, that may be true, but I lived across the street from Dawn for 15 of the 30 years that she's been there, and I've seen her power go out. I've seen my power go out when hers didn't go out. But to live on Adams Street, it's an adventure to wonder if the power is going to work or not. So every time I look at you and I'm listening to this report, I kind of look at you with kind of a jaundiced eye, because I'm like, come on, Joe, what are you going to do for my people? And really, you and I have talked before, and we really need to do something for the people on Adams and Wilson. It sucks. It sucks that their power goes out regularly. And I don't believe that it never went out in 2024, because I could go through my email string, because they call me up and they say, hey, the power's out again. Hey, the power's out again. What should I do? And honestly, I call ComEd for them half the time, or put the order in for them. What can we do, Joe, about getting somebody to take a fresh look at this? Some engineer who can walk the lines from her house back to wherever he has to walk and see what's really there, and let's solve the problem. It's really not fun to live on Adams. I don't want to lose Dawn as a resident. I mean, for 30 years we've known each other. I knew Kyle when he was this high. And so the last thing I want to do is see them move out because they don't have reliable, adequate power. It's not right.
Yes, understood. And thanks for those comments, Alderman. Like I was saying in the report, we're still going to be looking at this. So it's definitely at the height of our priority list. So we're going to continue to look at it and look for ways in which we can address those concerns. We conducted a walk down thus far from the beginning of the circuit to the end of the circuit, and we couldn't find any issues on that circuit per se. Like I said, most of the outages that we saw was tied to something else.
So if her meter is 30 years old and the guy's afraid to touch it, why don't we replace it for her? And let's start from the meter and do what we got to do. I mean, let's take a chance. I mean, maybe that's the bad spot.
Understood. Thanks for bringing that up, by the way. So with the meter, here's the situation with the meters. There's a meter, and then there's a meter fitting. So whoever the technician was may not have went into great detail about the difference between the two. The meter, we own it, and I know for a fact that meter is an up-to-date meter because just a couple of years ago we did the whole smart meter installation. So the meter's ours, but the cabinet actually belongs to the resident. So if anything needs to be replaced from the cabinet going back into the house, that would all be on the resident and not necessarily on ComEd.
But from the meter and the supply going down from ComEd, then that's your responsibility, right?
Right, going from the meter point.
So have you guys replaced any of that for her?
Not directly, no. But when we do our meter inspections and things like that, the meter would tell us if there's an issue on those cables. Yeah, but
I'm sorry, but when the guy was out, he was pointing to all of the houses in the neighborhood too, and saying how awful and terrible they look, and that there was wires exposed and things like this. And I'm just surprised that if you guys are doing all these checks, why isn't one of them, to Nick's point, why aren't you making sure the residents are okay? This has been 30 years of the same 38 houses, 30 years of PowerPoint presentations, and here I am. This one that was in daycare is now graduated U of I, out 10 years, and we still have the same problems over and over. So it's got to be the equipment.
okay.
Mr. Turnage, before you answer that question, can you just summarize the question into the mic for the record?
Oh, yes.
Thank you.
Mhm. So, Don, correct me if I'm wrong. Don is saying that that we've been out there and we've looked, and members of my staff have said that we have faulty equipment. Is that right?
Well, or it looks bad, or it looks old, they're afraid to touch it. I don't know what that means, and I don't know if I should have something on my house that an electrician's afraid to touch. That's, not a good thing. And again, like I said, it's the same 38 houses over and over for 30 years. I do have on my phone the dates that, it did go out in 2024, because I'm on ComEd's, text thing. So I do have, dates where we did lose power also in 2024.
Okay.
So there's never been a clean year since in 30 years.
Gotcha. So what I will do is, again, I'll meet with Dawn and I'll personally go to that residence and take a look at the equipment that she's got, along with one of my technicians, just to see, because like I said, our meters are new. The cables, to our knowledge, are good. The ones going underground and back to our system. So I'll definitely, won't be a problem. I'll definitely take a look and see what we can find out from there.
Thank you.
Thank you. And then Alderman Budmats, feel free to report back to the council if we need to take additional action then later on this summer. Are there any other questions or comments from council regarding the presentation? Or any other items that haven't been brought up yet regarding ComEd service and reliability in Rolling Meadows? Okay, in that case, Mr. Turnage, thank you for coming and speaking
Thank
with our residents, and we look forward to hearing the resolution for Adams Street. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Council.
All right, at this time, looking for a motion to adjourn our committee of the whole, and we will then take a break before, about a 5-minute break before starting our city council meeting. Thank you, Alderman O'Brien, for the first, and thank you, Alderman Boucher, for the second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? The ayes have it, and this meeting is adjourned at 7:01 p.m. on June 24th, 2025. We will reconvene at 7:06 to begin our city council meeting. Again, welcome everyone to the summer schedule. We have our committee of the whole that begins at 6:30. Once the committee of the whole agenda has concluded, we then will have our city council meeting that will proceed from that point forward. There is only one day of meetings in the summer, so our next meeting will be on the 4th Tuesday in July, the 4th Tuesday of August, and then we'll return to our 2nd and 4th Tuesdays for city council meeting and the 3rd Tuesday for committee of the whole. Thank you. Good evening and welcome to the City Council meeting. Today is June 24th, 2025, and the time is 7:07 p.m. Please join me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Will the clerk please call the roll?
McHale. Budmats.
Present.
O'Brien.
Here.
Veneziano.
Here.
Boucher.
Here.
Reyes.
Here.
Kohler.
Present.
With 6 present and 1 absent, there is a quorum this evening. This brings us to our first item on the agenda, which is to approve 3 previous meeting minutes. The first is our May 20th, 2025 Committee of the Whole meeting. Is there a motion to approve those meeting minutes?
So moved.
Thank you, Alderman Boucher for the first and Alderman O'Brien for the second. Are there any corrections, additions, or deletions to the minutes this evening? Hearing none, the question is, shall the minutes be approved? All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? The ayes have it, and those meeting minutes are approved. Our May 13th, 2025 City Council meeting minutes are also in the agenda packet this evening. Is there a motion to approve those minutes?
So
moved.
Thank you, Alderman O'Brien for the first and Alderman Boucher for the second. Are there any corrections, additions, or deletions to those minutes? Hearing none, the question is, shall the minutes be approved? All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? The ayes have it. Those meeting minutes are approved. Lastly, we have our May 27th, 2025 City Council meeting minutes up for approval. Is there a motion to approve those minutes?
So
So
moved.
moved.
Thank you, Alderman Boucher for the first and Alderman O'Brien for the second. Any corrections, additions, or deletions to that last set of minutes this evening? All right, hearing none, the question is, shall those meeting minutes be approved? All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? The ayes have it, and those meeting minutes are also approved. This evening, we have 2 presentations. Our first is our fiscal year 2024 audit and popular annual financial report, or PAFR presentation. And to that, I'm going to defer to Director Talkington, who will introduce Dawn Shaw from Lauterbach and Amen.
Thank you, Mayor. I like to think this is a fun night. You get 2, you have audit and the PAFR, and then we'll have actuarial reports. So finance filled. The audit is our annual process that we go through. Lauterbach and Amen is our auditors, and they essentially review our financials and make sure we're following best practices and adhering to the rules that govern our accounting principles. So Don Shaw's with Lauterbach and Amen. He'll give us an overview on the audit and just a brief update on our PAFR. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, well, thank you for having me. I'd first like to thank Molly and the entire finance team for making this yet another successful audit year. Without you, this is not possible, so thank you. Included in your packet is the popular annual financial report, or a PAFR as it's called. We do not express an opinion on those reports specifically. However, all the information that is within there comes directly from the annual comprehensive financial report that I'll go through with you today. So going through there, if you turn to page 10, you'll find the Certificate of Achievement Award. This award was provided for the 2023 audit year. We have applied for or expect to receive the same award for 2024. So congratulations on receiving that award. If you flip about 2 more pages, you'll run into our Lauterbach and Amen letterhead. This is our independent audit report in which we provide a clean, unmodified opinion. That's the highest opinion you can receive. Basically states that we found no issues with internal controls or the numbers as they're presented. The next section would be the management discussion and analysis, which begins on page 17. This section really provides a summary of how the year performed in narrative form. So if you have questions on fluctuations from year to year or what the numbers truly mean, this is where you want to go to find those answers.
And I'm so sorry to interrupt. I just wanted the council to know that this, we don't have the printed out version, but this is in the agenda packet. And for those who are following at home or those in the audience, if you want to access it on your phone, you can. But we also can have paper copies available at City Hall as well. I believe we already have the paper copies available. It's not even at request. Is that correct?
Correct. The paper copy's in finance if someone wants to come and review it, but it's also on our transparency portal on the website. So this and the actuarial reports and the PAF are available for the public.
Thank you, Director Talkington. Please continue.
So I'm next going to have you jump ahead, if you're following along electronically, to what would be your income statement, which is on page 48. About 3/4 of the way down the page, you'll notice that the general fund, which is your main operating fund, had an operating increase of about $2.9 million. This was reduced by a transfers out to your internal service funds, as well as your fire station capital fund. So your general fund was left with a $2 million net increase in the current year for an ending fund balance of $18.9 million. The notes to the financial statements will begin on page 58. And the notes really provide further detail into how we came up with the figures that we did with supporting schedules. Within there, you're gonna find your long-term debt and your capital asset schedules. I'm not gonna go through the notes with you tonight, so I'll have you jump ahead to page 124. Page 124 is the start of your budgetary information. So if you want to see how a specific fund performed based on what was budgeted, this is where you want to see those comparisons. Does anyone have any questions on the financial statements?
No questions so far from the council. Thank you.
All right. We also provided a second document called the management letter, in which we provided no current year recommendations, was a testament to the entire finance team and their readiness for the audit. So it was a fantastic year. And of the 5 prior year recommendations, 3 have been implemented in the current year, so they'll go away in next year's audit. So again, it was a great year for the city.
Thank you. Are there any other questions from the council regarding the audit that we had here? All right. Is there any additional information regarding the popular annual financial report?
Since we don't express an opinion on that, we typically don't go through that specifically, just because the numbers that are presented within there comes directly from here. So, yeah, we usually don't have any additional information on that.
Okay, and since we do have the public here this evening, Director Talkington, if you want to provide any additional information on what the popular annual financial report is, so that our residents know that there is an easily digestible version of the content that we got to see in print today.
Well, thanks, Mayor. You kind of did it. This is the report if someone's new to looking at financial reports. It's much smaller in pages and kind of digests the high-level information into easy to see graphs and charts, and tries to make it so it's not so technical in nature, where the annual audit, there's things we have to keep in certain formats and is much more technical. But the popular annual financial report is to try to turn that into plain language and explain what goes on at the city and compares it to budget. So it's a much easier to use document. I think that's a great place for people to start.
Thank you. Is there anything else you'd like the City Council to know this evening?
No, again, I just want to thank you for your time and enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you very much.
Right. Thanks.
Then at this time, we have our actuarial presentation and discussion on our police and fire pensions. And to that, I will defer to Director Molly Talkington for our introduction from Foster & Foster as well.
Great, thank you. So the actuarial report is essentially, again, a required document that we use. In this case, Foster & Foster is our actuary for both police and fire pensions. And they go through assumptions about police and fire, and need to make a determination of what we need to fund each year as a city to pay for those benefits that are essentially guaranteed to the police and fire through Article 3 and 4 in the state pension fund. So what they do is they go through and they look at, where did investments come in? Did it come into where we assumed? And kind of look at where we are to those assumptions, and then how we performed, and give us a recommendation for the future. So last year we did have a larger increase than we had in prior years, and we made adjustments to fund that. So this year, Heidi Endorfer will go through our reports, but I want to note that we want to keep it the same levy amount as we did last year. And so this would actually, we're going to take the recommendation that's being provided for both those funds and add an additional $27,000 to those recommendations. I know it's a smaller amount, but to keep that levy from 24 to 25 the same, but also try to get kind of ahead a little bit more as we can with that pension funding. So I will turn it over to Heidi Endorfer now.
Thank you, and on behalf of Foster & Foster, thank you very much for allowing me to come present the reports here tonight. I'm going to begin with the Foster report, which I believe, or the fire report, which I believe is in your packet. We'll begin with page 5 of that report. On page 5, it says summary at the top. This is your one-pager. All you need to quickly know about the pension fund can be found on this page. So at the top, you'll see the funded status. Just to acclimate you to our report in general, the numbers on the right-hand side of the page are the numbers from the prior year, so we'll be focusing on the numbers on the left-hand side. That allows you to see that year-over-year comparison to see how things have changed. At the top here, you see the funded status. So we did see an improved funded status. You went up from 55.4 to 58.6%, so that's a good thing to see year-over-year. That was the result of effectively favorable experience for the fund, and that favorable experience came from a couple of things. You had lower salary increases than anticipated, so we do build in actuarial assumptions for what we think salary is going to do year over year, and ultimately we project out to when we think retirement will happen. You had lower salary increases than anticipated based on that assumption, so that was gain to the fund. In addition, we saw higher inactive mortality. In addition, with that mortality, we didn't have beneficiaries that we would have anticipated with all of those deaths, so that decreases the liabilities as those annuities expire. And so the liability came down as a result of those two things. So those things coupled together did result in that increase in the funded status and the favorable experience that brought the contribution down a little bit in this fund. So you can see that happening in the middle of the page here. The contribution actually decreased a little over 1% year over year, so it's a little bit lower, but as Molly said, the intention is to keep that level, and I think that's actually a wise decision. I'll explain to you on another page here as we flip through that. So on page 6, I'm going to flip to a really boring page. This shows you that there were no plan changes. Those would be implemented through Illinois statute, and there were no assumption or method changes. So couple things to note on that. Plan changes is something that has been discussed with respect to Tier 2 pension benefits for both police and fire. You're probably aware of some of those. There's been changes discussed all the way to moving Tier 2 back up to Tier 1 level, and then various stages in the middle there. We believe it'll probably land somewhere in the middle, but we do believe that eventually those Tier 2 changes will be implemented in some fashion. So there's a couple reasons this is coming about. One is that all the Tier 2 funds in the state of Illinois do have an issue eventually with potentially not meeting the safe harbor requirement, that if Illinois funds are not going to provide Social Security, they have to meet what's called a safe harbor. And the issue in most Illinois funds to fix and amend that problem is to move the allowable pay that goes into the calculation of pension benefit to move up to the Social Security wage base. Right now it's lower than the Social Security wage base. So that change is one thing that's on the table, but that's not the one that's really going to drive the cost up here. The other one that we're seeing floated a lot is moving the retirement age down to match Tier 1, and that's the one that's going to be expensive. So we do think in the next year or two those changes are coming, so the concept of keeping that contribution level will also help you get ahead of that concept as well, as those changes might be implemented. The other one I want to point out is the actuarial assumptions. We do largely use the consolidated fund table studies for the demographic experience of the fund. So things like mortality, disability rates, termination rates, retirement rates, those are leveraged from a study that is performed for all of the Article 3 and then all of the Article 4 funds across the state of Illinois. Most funds are too small to have their own full set of rates. There's just not enough disablements and such to build a full table of rates. So we do rely on that consolidated experience. The fire fund is actually in the approval process of an experience study now. Once that gets approved in the next few months, we intend to implement those changes with the fire report next year. Hopefully they're not too significant in terms of liability impact, but at that time, we'll revisit all assumptions just to make sure we're in line. The police fund will be a little bit later. They're planning on doing their study next year, so it'll probably be another year out before we implement changes there, just to let you know that's on the radar. If I flip to page 7, this is the information that we collect to perform the valuation at the top, the participant data. We do collect what's called snapshot valuation data, meaning we collect it on January 1st. So whoever's in the fund on that date, whatever their status is on that date is what's included here. So to the extent somebody retires on January 5th, we'll pick that up in the next valuation. So that's what's reflected here at the top. The other thing you'll note here is the assets in the middle of the page. There are 2 values. There's an actuarial value and a market value. So you just went through the audit report where everything is a mark-to-market concept. They're using a market value of assets in that report. That can introduce quite a bit of volatility. As you know, the market can be quite volatile. So what we do on the funding side to ensure that you're not receiving extremely volatile answers from us on an annual basis is we smooth those asset gains and losses over a 5-year time frame. And so that's the other number that you're seeing there. The actuarial value of assets is smoothing those gains and losses relative to our actual assumption of 7% over 5 years to make sure that we're not introducing a lot of volatility to your calculations. On page 8, that gives us the total actuarial accrued liability here near the bottom of that leftmost column of $101.9 million. If we compare that to your actuarial value of assets, you have an unfunded actuarial accrued liability of $42.2 million. That's effectively a mortgage that the village has outstanding that needs to be paid off over time. We did implement a new funding policy last year where we're going to amortize that over a 15-year schedule. We're phasing down to that. So at this point in time, you're amortizing that over 16 years. Next year, we step down to 15, and at that point, we lock in on the 15 where we're effectively re-amortizing that mortgage on an annual basis. The effect of that is basically you're saying that every year you basically reach out and you grab one more year of taxpayers over which to spread that unfunded payment out over, so that you're not necessarily burdening through the old policy. You are effectively burdening the taxpayers through now in the year 2040 with the payment of the unfunded liability, and taxpayers after the year 2040 would sort of get off the hook for that payment. And so this sort of offers that intergenerational equity to your tax base a little bit more. And I think it's also a healthier way to steadily fund the plan without seeing that significant increase year over year. So if we look to page 10, this is the calculation of the contribution. There's various components in here. The calculation is comprised of the normal cost, which is basically the cost of your population earning 1 year of pension benefits. So this is actives that are still accruing benefits. 1 year of service in this fund was worth about $1.6 million. Add to that the cost to administer the fund, the administrative expenses, and then if you were to subtract from that the expected member contributions of 502, because remember they do pay 9.455% of their own salary towards these benefits, that would be your annual contribution on an ongoing basis should you get to the 100% funded level. But as I mentioned, you do have that amortization payment of $3.6 million in the middle of the page. So about 76% of the recommended amount is attributable to that mortgage payment. And so that's included in this contribution calculation. Fortunately, if I look towards the bottom of this page, this is a section I often look to when people ask me, how healthy is the fund? How are we doing? You're doing pretty well because you're actually taking these numbers seriously. You're contributing the recommended amounts. You're following the advice you're being given. And so that's always healthy to see. I don't get to say that at every meeting, so I like to say it when I have that opportunity. On page 11, this shows you the changes in the contribution year over year. So you can see the various components that contributed to that. So the top of the page shows you the number that we recommended from last year. At the bottom, you could see this year's number, the decrease of about $61,000. That was mostly driven by that inactive mortality. So we saw 3 deaths in your inactive ranks. We anticipated 1 based on the assumptions that were implemented. In addition, only 1 of those had a survivor, and we would have anticipated about 80% of the population having survivors. So those things really contributed to that gain there. In addition, the salary increases being lower than anticipated decreased the contribution by about $60,000. Now that was offset by that amortization payment, that payroll growth assumption that you do have built into your funding policy as well. So basically, if all of my assumptions exactly come true year over year, we anticipate about $121,000 increase to this contribution every year just based on the methodology as implemented. So with that, I'm going to turn you to the police fund, and we'll walk through that one a little bit faster. A lot of it's the same concepts, different numbers. But on page 5 of your police report, You also see an improvement here in the funded status. Not quite as improved as the fire side. We had favorable experience in this fund as well. Slightly less favorable than we saw on the fire side, but still favorable. So you saw that improvement from 66.8 up to 68.9%. That contribution only went up about $6,000, so 0.2% increase year over year. So again, favorable experience that's helping you out year over year here. That favorable experience came from the same factors. So we saw more mortality, lower increases than expected in pay. So those things did result in a similar picture to the fire side. If I turn you now, I'm going to flip you all the way to page 11 just to walk through what changed year over year so that you can see the same thing on the police side. The contribution determined from the prior year at the top, the current year at the bottom, that $6,000 increase. And again, here you do see that inactive mortality coming into play here, the $201,000 that decreased the contribution requirement. That was offset by the investment return, salary increases, and then again, that payroll growth assumption. The other thing we saw in this fund was that you had a few actives come in as new hires with a little bit of service that was included in here that also caused that slight increase. So those were the factors that effectively contributed to the reports this year, but overall a good story to tell in terms of the contributions that you have to contribute year over year. So with that, are there any questions?
Thank you so much, Heidi. And before I open it up to the council, I just wanted to clarify some items regarding some of the proposed reform to Tier 2 that you had mentioned before.
Sure.
Rolling Meadows is a member of the Northwest Municipal Conference as well as the Illinois Municipal League, and these are organizations that are active in Springfield and active in the various House and Senate bills regarding pension reform, since it impacts municipalities in a large way. Mm-hmm. So when you look at for those who have a property tax bill, you'll notice that the largest percentage on your property tax bill is going to the schools. Of the 16% that goes to the municipality, give or take, over half of that is pensions and paying our outstanding pension liability. And so any reform that takes place to Tier 2 benefits would have a significant impact on not just Rolling Meadows, but all of the municipalities throughout the state of Illinois. And so when talking with our lawmakers in Springfield, it was really important for us to clarify that Tier 2 benefits are not the same for police and fire, which have very strong unions, and have and also meet the requirement for safe harbor, versus other pensions that do not necessarily meet that requirement. So like the TRS does not meet safe harbor. The IMRF is completely exempt just because IMRF employees receive both Social Security and a pension. So the safe harbor rule wouldn't apply to those. And this sounds complicated, but ultimately this is really important for us to be able to understand because it's such a large portion of our budget. So I invite all of our residents to take a look at our popular financial report, to be able to look at some of this documentation to see how important it is for us to continue to pay off the pension liability and make sure that we are not just 90% but 100% funded for our liability by 2040. And we have been committed, not just us, but the councils before us have been committed, since this is a state requirement. If we do not meet these requirements, then this is money that can be clawed back through state statute. So thank you for providing these recommendations. It sounds like Director Talkington, even though we have these very slight decreases, that for us to be able to make the aggressive goal of ensuring that our pension liabilities are fully covered and fully funded by 2040, that we will then continue to follow that recommendation. With that, are there any questions from council members regarding our actuarial recommendations? Yes, Alderman Kohler.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. You may be able to answer this one because it gets a little bit confusing sometimes. But
sure.
We've been working towards funding these pensions to a certain percentage, correct? And
Yes.
I can't remember where in there. We're like 58 or 60 some percent.
In each fund it's a little bit different, so it's
And we're-
59-ish and
And
63-ish.
we're targeting getting to 70% by a certain time, right?
So initially, Illinois statute requires you to get to 90% by the year 2040. You have been doing better than that in these reports. Your funding policy up to last year was to try to get to 100% funding by the year 2040. We have updated that now to move to a rolling amortization methodology, which is the same methodology IMRF uses. So IMRF currently, they're phasing down to it as well, similar to what you're doing here. They're going to be phasing down to a 15-year rolling amortization by the year, I believe it's 2027. So your IMRF pension is already being funded using this methodology. So that's a similar form has been implemented here, but we are still funding to 100%. Using the rolling amortization will slow the pace at which you get to 100% funding, but to use a mathematical word, you effectively asymptotically approach 100% funding over a slower time frame. But you get there eventually.
So last year when we went through this, Madam Mayor, being one of my first years looking at this stuff, I was a bit confused because what I thought we weren't going to get to that because of changes that were occurring. You're saying there's still changes potential to the
For
pension?
tier 2, or are you talking
Correct,
about
correct.
the amortization process?
You mentioned something about possibly lowering retirement age for certain.
For tier 2, that's been on
Tier
the
2.
table, yes.
Yeah, so for example, when the city manager and I travel to Springfield to
Mhm.
have conversations with lawmakers, not just the ones that represent us, but all of the lawmakers that we can through our organizations like Northwest Municipal Conference and IML, which includes all of the municipality member organizations. We effectively want to ensure that we can educate those lawmakers to state that, yes, certain state pensions should be looked at. There should be some reform because they aren't meeting the safe harbor requirements. However, public safety pensions should not be included in those reforms since they are meeting that test. In fact, they are exceeding it. And so there was an official recommendation. I don't remember specifically off the top of my head if it was from the IRS but we had essentially an official letter from the federal government that confirmed that the safe harbor test was met for police and fire. And there has been other reform in the past, I want to say 6 years, including consolidation of our fire pensions specifically, which we're able to take some Go ahead, Director Talkington. You can talk about the consolidation more than I could.
Yeah, so fire was faster to move to consolidation for downstate, and we're considered in that downstate program. Police took a little bit longer because there wasn't a pending lawsuit about it, but they have now moved into consolidation. So both police and fire, under the downstate definition, which we fall into, are under consolidated. So we should start seeing better returns because essentially by consolidating the thought of doing that, similar to IMRF, right? We put all our money in one bucket and IMRF invests all that money at a larger amount and can invest it kind of in a wider array of things than we can individually. So we're now putting our money in that bigger pool and hopefully the returns will be better. I do think we've seen some of that with fire already. So there's been that change. There's also been changes in the past. So right now it's still holding at the 90% 2040, but I know that the Illinois Municipal League and some others are actively trying to change that date because as we get closer and closer to 2040, as was discussed, we try to hit our targets, but every year something, you're comparing, did we get 7% in, I'll just use the investment, right? Did we reach 7% investment or not? And that truly affects what that funding level is. So you could have one year that's really extremely down, and if we're still targeting the hard deadline of 2040, well, then the next year could be significantly up on what we would have to then fund as the recommendation. So there's some thought that there's a push to extend that date or to try to get it where there's similar to what we're trying to do here, that 15-year kind of rolling, because that's a little bit more steady in how you're funding and you're sharing that kind of burden with more generations, right, on the tax levy. So there's a lot that goes on at the state regarding pensions, and then of course tier 2, keeping it tier 2 is what's based in our actuarial plan, so it would be a significant impact to us if any changes were made in tier 2.
And any change that would take place to tier 2, then we would be looking for essentially plugging that hole when it comes to our budget because it's so large. One other thing that I wanted to also clarify was the history behind this. So anyone who I believe started in government or in any public sector after 2011 was the date. And that was not a change that was brought about by the organizations or the managerial organizations themselves. It wasn't just the school districts. It wasn't just the municipalities. It was actually a unique moment in history where unions and management organizations were able to come together and say, our current funding with everyone in Tier 1, or the Tier 1 benefits at the time, is not sustainable. And if we do not do anything, then we will not be able to fund this problem. So Tier 2 historically was a compromise, and it was a compromise that people on both sides of the aisle were able to agree to moving forward for this to be able to work. And we want it to work. We want to make sure that we are providing a guaranteed benefit to our public safety employees here who are protecting our residents and keeping us safe and making sure that they're always available when we need them. And so this is one of the most critical directions that we can give as a council. And since it affects our property tax levies, it's something that I hope that all residents will look into as well. Any other questions from the council for actuary tonight? Okay, I think that's all set here. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much for having me here tonight.
Of course. Director Talkington, was there anything else that we wanted to discuss regarding these presentations? Okay. At this time, there is no mayor's report. Are there any ward reports this evening? Yes, Alderman O'Brien.
Thanks, Mayor. Just real quickly, based on some recent questions, I know it's that time of the year. Just a reminder, anybody listening, is to try and be good neighbors and observing city ordinances for grass heights, property maintenance, parking on approved surfaces. A huge thanks to Chief Nowacki, Deputy Chief Peluso, our officers, and then Glenn and the inspectors for following up on complaint issues. So just a quick reminder to property maintenance, parking on allowed surfaces, and grass height. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other ward reports this evening? Okay. Hearing none, at this time, we will open up the meeting to the public for 20 minutes. And in order to secure the rights of the citizens of the city to a fair and just representation before their elected officials, and to guarantee to the elected officials an order and dignified forum in which to conduct the city's business, no person shall be allowed to engage in any activity that will disturb or disrupt the orderly proceedings of the city council. So, per the rules of procedure, the public is to address the city council, and the fact that no member of the city council responds does not mean that the city council or any member thereof agrees or disagrees with the comment. So in other words, if you are on the signatory sheet to speak, you will have your time, and the clerk will be able to provide that time for you. And there won't be discussion. If there are any other items that you're speaking on that are on the agenda, then the council can discuss that comment, or if there's any clarifications, we can discuss it on matters not on the agenda later in the evening, or we can also connect you offline with a staff member that will be able to resolve your issue. In order to attain the objective that we have for our procedure, for our rules of procedure, the following rules of conduct are hereby established. Any person who seeks to address the city council at this time for public comments shall be permitted to speak only upon recognition of the presiding officer, and such person shall adhere to the following provisions. First, that each person addressing the city council shall state their name for the record. Each person shall be granted no more than 2 minutes of the allotted 20 minutes in order to address the city council. Questions and or commentary shall be limited to city business. Comments supporting or opposing a nominated person's candidacy for elective office of the city shall be out of order. Commentary shall be directed to the presiding officer unless the presiding officer permits the individual to address the council members or other city officials present. Discussion shall take place in a professional manner which displays mutual respect, and profanity shall not be used in any form or manner. With that, the first signatory on the sign-in sheet this evening is Ms. Lynn Greismeyer.
Okay. Hello, I'm Lynn Griesmeyer, and I'm discussing the issue with Kirchhoff Road, and this relates to the city attorney. If the Lakota contract verbiage about making Kirchhoff Road only 2 lanes with 1 middle turning lane has been struck out of that contract. And if the City of Rolling Meadows attorney has written the contract amendment for Lakota stating Kirchhoff Road will totally remain as is, 2 eastbound lanes and 2 westbound lanes within existing turn lanes. If answers to the previous questions are no, there will be issues impacting every Rolling Meadows resident. Fire trucks and ambulances responding to emergencies using Kirchhoff will be stalled if someone is stopped by traffic in the middle turn lane. You will be responsible for preventing emergency responders from timely carrying out their duties. There will be east and west traffic backups along much of Kirchhoff Road. The exit ramp off Route 53 Expressway onto Kirchhoff will be backed up. What will your answer be to the Illinois Department of Transportation when asked what is the reason for this issue? Consumers may not want to continue shopping at stores along Kirchhoff Road due to traffic backups. Now that the Chicago Bears will be in Arlington Heights, but Rolling Meadows may not be a welcoming neighbor by promoting traffic congestion on Kirchhoff Road that discourages Route 53 on-off ramp access because of traffic backups. Parallel parking on Kirchhoff Road is dangerous for anyone exiting their vehicle. Frustrated motorists will use the bike lane to bypass congestion.
You have
a
15 seconds left.
dangerous scenario for bikers of all ages. And there is no need for a bike lane. Rolling Meadows widened sidewalks along the north and south side of Kirchhoff, wide enough for both pedestrians and bikers. Thank you.
Thank you. The next signatory on the sign-in sheet is Betty Anderson.
Okay. I have two words, no, not Scottish ones this time. They are selfish complacency. I noticed that the three aldermen who are in favor of the 2 lanes on Kirchhoff would probably use Euclid and Algonquin because of their location. I found out recently this expression was British, not American. My parents lived in America several years. It is, to hell with you, Jack, I'm all right. It relates to the last sailor leaving a sinking ship, but it still seems to fit perfectly with this situation. I had an idiotic idea. If this plan goes through, why don't we flood the bike path in the winter time and have skating parties? This is just as brilliant as having Kirchhoff Road reduced to 2 lanes. Why wasn't the 4-3 vote accepted? We already have a bike path, and we could put up a sign to indicate the Kimball Hill Park so strangers will not be confused. I don't think the council realized the residents do not wish to have a downtown like Arlington Heights. People come and use Kirchhoff from all areas, whether or not there are other exits. So keep thinking of other people instead of being plain, complacently selfish. I was at Fratella's yesterday, spoke to one of the owners. She said, I don't think the council realized this is our livelihood. Start realizing.
You have 15 seconds left.
I don't know if you are aware, but quite a number of people use Kirchhoff because they live between Algonquin and Euclid. And if you want us to have a place like Arlington Heights, that to me is not quaint.
Thank you very much. Next
or
signatory on the
acceptable.
sign-in sheet is Michael Torsman.
Good to see everybody again. My name is Michael Torgman, a specialty shop owner here in Rolling Meadows. I'm here once again to talk about the THC ban in our city. Over the last few months, I've tried reaching out and coming here to speak as much as I could to address the ban and some potential misinformation around it. Alderman O'Brien has graciously taken the time to meet with me and hear about some concerns and potential misinformation about the ban. In the ordinance, there's so much talk about Delta-8 THC and the harming effects on it to our public. Before the ban was implemented, my business never carried Delta-8 THC. We carried safe and legal lab-tested products that all came with certificates of analysis from DEA-approved laboratories. There was also so much talk about children in the ordinance. I'm finding it very hard to accept this as a reason for the ban, since each and every person that enters my business is over the age of 21. Not only does my business have a perfect track record in adhering to rules and regulations that are in place, but me personally as a business owner hold myself to the highest level of self-awareness for the products that I have carried or continue to carry out of my business. The ban has been crippling to me. The ban is extremely detrimental to the financial well-being of my business, and it honestly does not work. When customers can still order any of the items in question online or simply drive 1 minute down the street, there is clearly a problem at hand. As a responsible business owner, I believe there's a better way to handle this situation. I'm fully ready and willing to propose some type of regulation that will benefit the city of Rolling Meadows and ensure only qualified and responsible business owners can take part in this industry. There's been so much talk about protecting our city, and I 1000% support this, but this ban is not the way to do it. We live in a time in the world where it is rapidly changing all around us. All I ask is for the opportunity to show that there is much misunderstanding in the language in this
15
ordinance.
seconds left.
There are no additional licenses I can obtain. The items are legal on the federal and state level with clear indication that regulation is the end goal here in Illinois. I'm fully ready to bring whatever is needed to the table to help alleviate any concerns or questions there may be. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Mr. Dick Clark.
My name is Dick Clark. I'm concerned about narrowing Kirchhoff Road. I think it'll hurt the businesses like Portillo's, Senior Taco, Comet Ice Cream. It'll be devastating for them. There'll be head-on collisions with the middle lane and collisions with people parking on the sides trying to pull out. I wonder why the village spent so much money on traffic studies and no money for the Veterans Parade. And why did the village buy the land next to the condos over here? That was private property, supposed to be for more condos. Why did the village buy that? And also, I used to live in Pennsylvania. Route 31 was considered the most dangerous road in Pennsylvania because it was 3-lane, head-on collisions in the middle lane. They finally made it a 4-lane road after years of deadly accidents. So I'm just really concerned about narrowing Kirchhoff Road. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Joe MacArthur.
Hi, Madam Mayor. I'm Joe MacArthur, Lot 20, Highland Meadows subdivision. I'll be brief. I'm here to respectfully ask you to reopen the case that your city closed on me regarding a drainage issue, that your own FOIA records came back that show that you violated my Fifth Amendment, that I believe that you violated my Fifth Amendment through inverse condemnation, because when governments take private land, they need to owe compensation to private owners. And in 2019, I had the reconfiguration project for the sewers in my subdivision, that the city uses my detention pond. That's not a detention pond. It is an emergent wetland, and I wish we can cut down those cattails, but they would just grow back anyway, so it's not really an ordinance thing. But it is a government stealing private land thing, and that bothers me because your city is making the situation worse by not leading by example and following the Bill of Rights, because that sewer was never compensated through eminent domain. It was snuck onto a private property when it was foreclosed on, and that drainage affects my property and erosion issues. You guys are just a little piece on my chessboard because I'm trying to resolve a bigger problem that I don't need to exhaust state remedies. I don't need to sue Rolling Meadows. I don't need to sue MWRD. I don't need to sue United. I don't need to sue Harper College. I can sue the United States of America through the Tucker Act, because the United States Army Corps of Engineering think my land is a pond. They used a 2002
You
aerial
have 15
picture.
seconds left.
It's 2025. It's not 2002. I would appreciate your help if you can reopen that matter you closed so we can fix that drainage issue. Thank you.
Mr. Michal Gavlik.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. My name is Mihao, longtime listener, second-time speaker. My family lives south of Kirchhoff Road. Last month, I spoke generally in favor of Kirchhoff Road corridor study. Some of my fellow residents spoke against it. I'm back to share more positive thoughts because I believe you deserve to hear more than just negative contrarian views. One of the arguments last month against changes to Kirchhoff Road was that the Route 53 exit would feed into a single lane. I'd like to kindly point out that the corridor study only recommends a lane reduction east of Flicker Lane. Thus, there are 580 feet from the off-ramp to Flicker Lane for traffic to dissipate, turn left or right onto Rolling or frontage, or for a lane merge. My fellow residents suggested that traffic study during the summer is somehow less effective than one during a school year. Sheesh, this microphone does not like tall people. I propose to you that traffic engineers know what they're doing and can consider a school. The corridor study, they're not traffic engineers, highlighted those schools. Furthermore, the IDOT traffic count from May 2022 identified 8 to 9 a.m. and 5 to 6 p.m. as the busiest times on Kirchhoff Road. Those are hours where buses and parents dropping off kids are not on the roads because school has either already started or comfortably concluded. I'm admittedly a stubborn person. I've put in FOIA requests for District 15. When I get the results this week, I will share them with City Manager Sabo to pass along to Civil Tech Engineering if they're still doing the study. I'm slightly annoyed by that my fellow residents basically suggest foul play on the part of the City Council, the City staff, or the Lakota Group during the corridor study. I commend City Manager Sabo for explaining the request for proposal process and how transparent the city is. I have great respect for the city staff and the work they do alongside consultants. On the topic of public engagement, 1,000 people responded, plus 2,000 website views. 2,800 people vote in mayoral elections where there's a four-person race. No disrespect to you, Mayor Sonoyka. The last election was a little less contested. I hope my comments today put your mind at ease about past concerns and allow you to focus on exciting future opportunities. I hope you carefully consider insights from experts. I hope my son has to cross 3 lanes instead of 5 lanes. Thank you.
Ms. Roxanne Summer.
Okay. Oh, way up there, huh? How's that? You can hear me? I think I wanted to talk about 2 things. But first, most importantly, thank you all for helping us and giving us the guidance that we need to stay alive in this wonderful city of Rolling Meadows. Thank you all. Okay, I have 2 things. One of them I was going to bring to the City of the Council of the Whole, but Committee of the Whole, but I missed that meeting. So I have an idea of a residential award program. A lot of companies do this on their own, where residents would come up with a cost-saving ideas to the city, maybe have a box somewhere or a couple boxes somewhere around a city, and be rewarded for these ideas as they are presented. If something can save $10, kind of iffy, but if there's an award idea somebody has that could save thousands, that would be worth something to that person to get a reward, some kind of reward. Let's see. Okay, so like when they changed the street lights to LED, that was a cost savings and a smart change. Whoever came up with that idea to introduce it to the city would be nice to give them a nice little chunk of a reward. Okay, so that's one. Then the second idea I have is I would like to ask you, Mayor, to put a proclamation.
15
that
seconds left.
Any official meeting that the city has, veterans, committee of the whole, whatever the meeting is, that we say the Pledge of Allegiance at the beginning of every single meeting. It doesn't take long. I think that when we say it here, we say it a little bit fast. We should slow it down a little bit because
Your time
each
is up.
word means
Thank you.
something. Thank you.
Mr. Zach Kaffitz? Okay, you're here for the 6B item. Okay, just for the council to be aware, we do have representatives regarding the 6B exemption that's on the agenda. So if you have questions on that, we do have representatives here who can answer those questions. Thank you. At this time, we will move on to our pending items. The first item that we have is item A, ordinance number 25-32, which is to grant a special use permit for a smoking lounge located at 5540 New Wilkie Road in for second reading. This was postponed at the May 27, 2025 City Council meeting. Is there a motion to adopt this ordinance?
So moved.
Thank you, Alderman O'Brien, for the first and Alderman Boucher for the second. Is there any discussion regarding the adoption of this ordinance? Yes, Alderman Kohler.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, I'm going to vote against this. And I'll give my reasons for voting against it. First of all, I don't know anybody who shows that any tobacco product is safe. They're all dangerous. The government has spent decades researching this and tried to instill ordinances and laws to control it, prohibit sales to use, restricting use in public spaces for secondhand smoke and workplaces for secondhand smoke. Unfortunately, the lobbying efforts of the tobacco industry has allowed loopholes, which is the one that's being exploited here. A loophole that says that if they sell 80% of their product as it is considered as tobacco or similar product is considered a retail establishment and they can smoke inside those facilities. I do not believe that either hookah or cigar lounge is meant for that purpose. It is different from Mr. Michael Torchman, who has been here several times for his business. I believe they're exploiting that loophole for this case. Also, at least in the case where Michael Torchman has made a case for hemp-based products and kratom-based products, at least they tried to present it as a health benefit, although I don't see that that's substantiated by any government research or any data. But at least that's their proposal. There is no health benefit here. There's no health benefit here. It is not safe. They tend to promote smoking amongst youth. By youth, I understand that it's over 21, but that's still youth at my age, who then go on to establish a smoking habit and then develop health risk throughout the rest of their life, which they will regret. For that reason, I will vote against this, and I would encourage my council members to consider their votes along the same lines. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Okay. Are there any other questions or comments regarding this item? No? Alderman Veneziano?
Thank you. So I'm going to be devil's advocate on here. Being a medical professional, I agree with Alderman Kohler that it is ill-advised to smoke. Obviously, it's ill-advised in the medical field. However, it's grown adults. We have places that we sell alcohol. We have places that we sell cigarettes and other tobacco uses. You're a grown adult. You need to make your grown decisions. I don't think it's a loophole due to the fact that it is a smoking lounge. There are many of these places in other towns. There is a purpose to them, and that I think that if they are done with rules and regulations provided by the state, ordinances provided by us, that's why they're looking for this special use, it is done correctly. And so as much as I will not be visiting, I will be supporting it.
Thank you. Are there any other comments or questions? Okay. Hearing none, then the question is, shall the ordinance be adopted? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Veneziano.
Yes.
Boucher.
No.
Reyes.
Yes.
Kohler.
No.
Bud Matts.
No?
O'Brien.
Yes.
Okay, council. Very well. I will be voting in favor of this. Yes. So, just a point of order from our parliamentarian. We have 6 members of the council here. For the tie break, the chair then can break the tie.
That is absolutely correct.
Okay,
Yes.
so then how shall this be stated then for the record? That we've got 4 in favor and 3 against?
Yes.
Okay, so then we have 4 in favor and 3 against, and this ordinance is adopted. This brings us to item B, ordinance number 25-37 to approve deferring the imposition of the municipal push tax for the city of Rolling Meadows until January 1st, 2026. And there is a request for waiver of first reading. Since we're in summer schedule, we publish the or have the draft agenda published 2 weeks out, and at the same cadence as we normally would for a first and second reading, which is why the waiver is being requested here this evening. So with that, I'm looking for a motion to. Are we considering first and then waiving?
Waiving first.
We will waive first, okay. To waive first reading of item B. Is there such a motion? Thank you, Alderman Bud Matts for the first and Alderman O'Brien for the second. And is there any discussion regarding the waiver of first reading this evening? All right, hearing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Boucher.
Yes.
Reyes.
Yes.
Kohler.
Yes.
Bud Matts.
Yes.
O'Brien.
Yes.
Veneziano.
Yes.
With 6 in favor and none opposed, the waiver of first reading does pass, which now brings us back to item B. Is there a motion to consider ordinance number 25-37 for second reading? Thank you, Alderman O'Brien for the first and Alderman Boucher for the second. Is there any discussion regarding the adoption of this ordinance? Yes, Alderman Boucher.
We seem to push this out at like a 6-month year. Like, this is not the first time this are we going to ever do anything with this, or are we just going to continue to push it? Like, is there a reason we're not just not? Like, I'm just a little confused about why it keeps coming back up, and we don't seem to be making any other movement or motions on it except for pushing it farther down the line.
Certainly, Alderman Boucher. For city staff, are we looking for Assistant City Manager Glenn Cole or Director Talkington?
I believe the city attorney could probably best explain this.
Very well. City Attorney Wolf, please.
Yes, the reason why we're pushing back the date on the deferral is because there's still outstanding litigation with respect to the push tax. In addition, we're waiting for the Department of Revenue to issue regulations regarding the implementation of that tax.
Okay.
So what this ordinance does is push it out another 6 months or an earlier date as determined by the council. So if before January 1, the appellate matters are resolved or regulations are issued that gives the city more guidance on the implementation of the tax, the city council can reconsider the deferral and then impose the tax in accordance with those regulations.
Okay, perfect. I just want to make sure there was actually light at the end of the tunnel and not just a continual push down. So thank you.
If I could, Madam Mayor.
Yes, of course.
I would also add that the legislature took away our ability to impose a push tax. So part of why we continue to defer it is that we have our foot in the door, and we wouldn't be able to if we were to just repeal and wait or something else like that. So that's an option municipalities no longer have if they fail to adopt it before a date certain.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? All right, hearing none, the question is, shall the ordinance be adopted? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Reyes.
Yes.
Kohler.
Yes.
Bud Matts.
Yes.
O'Brien.
Yes.
Veneziano.
Yes.
Boucher.
Yes.
With 6 in favor, none opposed, this ordinance is approved. This brings us to, or not approved, I'm sorry, this ordinance is adopted. This brings us to item C, ordinance number 25-38, to approve and authorize the execution of a real estate purchase contract for the acquisition of certain property commonly known as 2214 Algonquin Road. And there is a waiver of first reading. Is there a motion to waive the first reading? Thank you, Alderman Bud Matts for the first and Alderman O'Brien for the second. Is there any discussion regarding the waiver of first reading this evening? Hearing none, the question is, shall the first reading be waived? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Kohler.
Yes.
Bud Matts.
Yes.
O'Brien.
Yes.
Veneziano.
Yes.
Boucher.
Yes.
Reyes.
Yes.
With 6 in favor and none opposed, the first reading is waived, which brings us back now to second reading. Is there a motion to consider this ordinance for second reading?
So moved.
Thank you, Alderman Boucher for the first and Alderman Veneziano for the second. Is there any discussion regarding the adoption of this ordinance? Okay. In that case, will the clerk please call the roll?
Bud Matts.
Yes.
O'Brien.
Yes.
Veneziano.
Yes.
Boucher.
Yes.
Reyes.
Yes.
Kohler.
Yes.
With 6 in favor and none opposed, this ordinance is adopted. This brings us to item D, ordinance number 25-39, which is to approve an amendment to the annual budget for the City of Rolling Meadows for the 2025 fiscal year. There's a waiver of first reading requested. Is there a motion to waive first reading?
So moved.
Thank you, Alderman Veneziano for the first, Alderman Boucher for the second. Is there any discussion regarding waiver of first reading? Hearing none, shall the first reading be waived? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Bud Matts.
Yes.
O'Brien.
Yes.
Veneziano.
Yes.
Boucher.
Yes.
Reyes.
Yes.
Kohler.
Yes.
With 6 in favor and none opposed, this first reading is waived, which brings us back to our second reading. Is there a motion to consider this item for second reading?
So moved.
Thank you, Alderman Boucher for the first and Alderman Veneziano for the second. Is there any discussion regarding the adoption of this ordinance? Hearing none, shall the ordinance be adopted? Will the clerk please call the roll?
O'Brien.
Yes.
Veneziano.
Yes.
Boucher.
Yes.
Reyes.
Yes.
Kohler.
Yes.
Bud Matts.
Yes.
With 6 in favor and none opposed, this ordinance is adopted. This now brings us to new business in item E. We need a motion to ratify payment of bills on warrant for June 10th, 2025. Is there a motion to ratify the payment? Yes, Alderman O'Brien for the first and Alderman Veneziano for the second. Is there any discussion regarding the ratification of the payment of bills on warrant for June 10th, 2025? Hearing none, the question is, shall the payment of bills on warrant be ratified? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Veneziano.
Yes.
Boucher.
Yes.
Reyes.
Yes.
Kohler.
Yes.
Bud Matts.
Yes.
O'Brien.
Yes.
With 6 in favor and unopposed, that warrant is ratified. Which brings us to item F. We need a motion to approve the payment of bills on warrant for June 24th, 2025. Is there such a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Alderman Reyes for the first and Alderman Veneziano for the second. Is there any discussion regarding the approval of the payment of bills on warrant for June 24th, 2025? Hearing none, the question is, shall the payment of bills on warrant be approved? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Boucher.
Yes.
Reyes.
Yes.
Kohler.
Yes.
Bud Matts.
Yes.
O'Brien.
Yes.
Veneziano.
Yes.
With 6 in favor and unopposed, that warrant is approved. This now brings us to our consent resolutions this evening, which consist of 11 items, items G through Q. Does any alderperson wish to remove any item from the consent agenda for resolutions? All right, giddy up. Then the chair declares an order for one motion to consider the 11 resolutions in one motion without debate. Is there such motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Alderman Veneziano for the first and Alderman O'Brien. I heard you for that second. Item G, resolution number 25-R-55 is to reject all bids received for the trench drain project at the Combined Services Facility located at 3900 Birdnick Street. Item H, resolution number 25-R-56 to award a contract to Clark Dietz Incorporated for professional services for the proposed design of a standby emergency generator for water pumping station 1 in the amount of $28,800 and no cents. Item I, resolution number 25-R-57 to approve an agreement with Selbit Perkins Consulting to perform design engineering services for the installation of a monument sign at the Euclid and Route 53 interchange in the amount of $24,500 and no cents. Item J, resolution number 25-R-58 to award a contract to McCann Window and Door for the supply and installation of exterior service doors located at the Public Works facility in the amount of $34,500 and no cents. Item K, resolution number 25-R-59 to authorize a contract for the purchase of a 2025 Ford F-150 from Curie Motors in a not-to-exceed amount of $49,008 and no cents. Item L, resolution number 25-R-60 to authorize the support of a Cook County 6B classification tax incentive for property located at 5110 Tollview Drive, J2M Tollview, LLC. Item M, resolution number 25-R-61 to award a professional services agreement for full-time construction, observation, and related engineering services for the sanitary lift station number 3 replacement project in a not-to-exceed amount of $124,000 and no cents. Item N, resolution number 25-R-62, award a construction contract to TEC Tracy and Ed Construction Incorporated for lift station 3 replacement and upgrades in the amount of $818,120 and no cents. Item O, resolution number 25-R-63 to award a professional engineering contract for full-time construction engineering and related engineering services for the Park Street Storm Project, Phase 3, in a not-to-exceed amount of $86,400 $415.00. Item P, resolution number 25-R-64, award a contract for construction services for Park Street Storm Sewer Improvements Phase 3 to Concept Plumbing Incorporated in the amount of $795,914.50. And lastly, item Q, resolution number 25-R-65 to award a contract to Concentric Integration for supervisory control and data acquisition SCADA upgrades to the water distribution system in the amount of $74,500.00. The question is, shall the resolutions be adopted? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Reyes.
Yes.
Kohler.
Yes.
Bud Matts.
Yes.
O'Brien.
Yes.
Veneziano.
Yes.
Boucher.
Yes.
With 6 in favor and none opposed, those resolutions are adopted. This now brings us to other business and reports. We have several reappointments this evening. We have our Board of Fire and Police Commissioners, John Loesch and Mary Rooney Sheehan, as well as our Economic Development Committee reappointment, Heather Larson, available to us on the dais. Is there a motion to approve those reappointments? Thank you, Alderman Veneziano, for the first and Alderman Boucher for the second. Is there any discussion regarding the reappointments of these volunteers? All right, hearing none, shall the reappointments be approved? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Kohler.
Yes.
Bud Matts.
Yes.
O'Brien.
Yes.
Veneziano.
Yes.
Boucher.
Yes.
Reyes.
Yes.
With 6 in favor and none opposed, those reappointments are approved. There are no proclamations this evening nor city clerk's report, which now brings us to our staff reports. For our community items of interest, I will defer to Assistant City Manager Glenn Cole this evening.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have a total of 6 items to report this evening. First, the city's Bites and Beats on Kirchhoff food truck event series takes place tomorrow, June 25th, on the grounds of the Community Church at 2720 Kirchhoff Road. Held on the 4th Wednesday evening of each month through September, grab a bite from an array of food trucks while tuning into a blend of eclectic musicians. We are excited for the second year of this fun event and look forward to seeing everyone there tomorrow evening. Second, the Rolling Meadows Human Services Department will be offering a variety of workshops in the coming weeks. The Mindful Aging Group will meet weekly on Thursday mornings from 10:30 to 11:30 a.m. here at City Hall. Participants aged 50 and up will learn to navigate aging with a positive mindset, uncover new passions, and live a life full of meaning and connection. Third, during the season of summertime celebrations, the Rolling Meadows Police Department will be participating in the Independence Day Traffic Enforcement Campaign from June 20th until July 7th. The police will be actively enforcing DUI violations, speeding, unlawful use of cell phones while operating motor vehicles, seatbelt enforcement, and child safety seat violations. If alcohol will be part of your summer festivities, don't get behind the wheel impaired. Rather, plan ahead to ensure that you have a safe ride home. Fourth is for July 4th in Rolling Meadows, which is a fun-filled day of patriotic pride. On Friday, July 4th, the city's parade will kick off from the Rolling Meadows High School at 11:30 a.m. and meander down Meadow Drive this year, ending at the Jewel parking lot on Kirchhoff Road. At dusk, the city will hold an amazing display of fireworks from behind the Park District's Community Center, which offers viewing and parking, along with many other nearby park, school, city, and church locations. On July 18th will be the first Friday's rock concert of the season in Kimball Hill Park. Bring your lawn chair and blanket to enjoy the classic rock tunes from the opening band Electric Dawn at 6 p.m. and Wedding Band at 8 p.m. Come hungry and try delicious fares from popular food vendors with adult beverages served by Reps Place. Thank you to our sponsor ComEd and to the Rolling Meadows Park District for sponsoring opening bands and for the use of their property. For questions regarding this event, please visit the city's website, cityrm.org. Finally, a new 3-day event with bands, brews, family fun, and a taste of Rolling Meadows will take place on Friday through Sunday, September 12th, 13th, and 14th. Our event partners include the city and the Park District, with Reps Place as the major sponsor. Check out cityrm.org for details and get ready to celebrate the city's 70th anniversary with style. That would conclude the community items of interest, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Assistant City Manager Glenn Cole. The financial report is in the packet. We've had a number of financial reports this evening, which are also in the packet and available on the city's website. If the council has any questions regarding the report, please contact Finance Director Molly Talkington. For our May 2025 new business report, I will defer to our Business Development Manager, Martha Corner.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm pleased to announce one new business for the month of May, the Couch Brothers, which is a furniture storage and warehouse on New Park Drive. Additionally, in the upcoming days, we'll see 2 more new restaurants opening. Smile Thai and Asian Kitchen, which is taking over the former Suko Thai location at 1933 Plum Grove Road and Squire Court Shopping Center, and also Easy Lounge, which is a former La Mirage at 3223 Algonquin, will be opening basically in a couple days.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The draft agendas are in the packet as well, so if the City Council has any questions regarding those agendas, please contact City Manager Rob Sabo. At this time, we're at matters not on the agenda, and so there were a couple of items that had come up during public comment. Public Works Director Grosskopf, I understand that the city has worked with multiple agencies regarding the issues that Mr. MacArthur brought up in public comment this evening regarding the retention on his retention pond on his property. Can you please provide a summary of the city's actions in resolving these issues over the past several months and our interactions with the other agencies that have been described before?
Absolutely. Thank you, Madam Mayor. So this actually, just to give a little bit of background, this started back in roughly of August of 2024 when this was brought to our attention. Essentially, the original complaint was derived of the detention basin or stormwater management system that is on Lot 20 and subsequent lots that are south of that, so like 19, 18, 17, going further down. Specifically on Lot 20, there was a lot of vegetation buildup, a lot of sediment, a lot of silt over the course of many, many years. So when the original complaint came in, I walked the property as well as other staff members from Public Works. We evaluated it, we reviewed the documentation, we spoke with the Metropolitan Water Reclamation District, MWRD, we spoke with the Village of Palatine, and we also had contact with the Army Corps of Engineers. And essentially what it boils down to is the original documents of the subdivision call out this specific piece of property as stormwater management for the entire subdivision, as well as subsequent, south lots in that area. And I know it was brought up today, the topic of inverse condemnation and things of that nature. The city has two outfalls on Lot 19, or one outfall on Lot 19 and one outfall on Lot 20. The outfall on Lot 20 was installed with the development of the subdivision and has been maintained by the city. And then the outfall on Lot 19 was installed as part of the road program to alleviate some flooding issues. Both outfalls are in easement and right-of-way and are part of a city infrastructure project, so there is no question of inverse condemnation in that matter. Additionally, with those subdivision documents that we have reviewed and communications with MWRD, we have discovered that there's a few different situations that are involved as far as agreements that go outside of the city of Rolling Meadows between MWRD, I believe Palatine Park District, and those agreements have maintenance between those agencies, and then there's also the question of like wetlands with the Army Corps of Engineer. But the city has no specifically called out name within any of those agreements, and the only agreement or subdivision documents that we have state specifically that the lot owners are responsible for the maintenance of those areas. So those are the documents that we have reviewed and the information that we've been working off of since this all started back in August of 2024.
Okay, so there appears to be then a disconnect between Mr. MacArthur, who believes that this is not a resolved issue, and from what you're sharing with us, which is that across multiple agencies, this appears to be a resolved issue.
That is correct. Yes.
Okay, so then I will work then with staff to get in touch with Mr. MacArthur to meet with him. I understand that we've had lots of conversations between the alderman in Ward 1 who has met as well, Alderman McHale. So I'll work with both staff and Mr. MacArthur to figure out where that disconnect is coming from. Thank you for providing that summary here for the council.
Thank you.
There was another item that came up during public comment regarding awards for residents and within the city of Rolling Meadows. And Police Chief Nowacki actually has not necessarily an award for most efficient resident, but we do have opportunities to highlight the heroes that we do have here in the city. And Police Chief Nowacki, if you would provide maybe an overview of the Brian Anderson Award that we honor here.
Sure. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for bringing that up. It's something that we started several years ago just to to recognize residents here that just go above and beyond. Because I said Rolling Meadows is such a great community. And Brian Anderson, one of our, not only a local hero, but a national hero, who served in the military and was severely injured, but his story didn't end there. He continues to give to veterans, to all types of organizations. So in his honor and in conjunction with the police department, we do recognize residents and we do accept nominations. So on our website, you can make a nomination for a resident. We usually give those out at National Night Out.
And the next National Night Out is scheduled for the first Tuesday in August?
That is correct.
Which is on August 5th this year. So, are there any other matters not on the agenda this evening that the council would like to discuss? Yes, Alderman Veneziano.
Thank you. Chief Nowacki, I would love for you to clarify for our young residents exactly the ordinance that you put out on the Facebook post about scooters. I can't tell you how many questions I got, especially from young kids. In my neighborhood, they can't ride their little scooters anymore. So if you could please clarify exactly what they're going to get in trouble for and what they're not going to get in trouble for.
Well, thank you for that that topic also. Yes, we just, the city council recently passed an ordinance prohibiting scooters for anybody that is under the age of 18, doesn't have like driver's license. You can't be on the roadway with an e-scooter. Like I said, they are dangerous, but like I said, if you are going to be on them, you have to be an adult. You have to follow the rules of the road. If you're going to drive on night, they have to have lights and so forth. So for the youngsters out there, they should not be on those vehicles and on the roadway. They are very dangerous, and we want to keep them safe.
So can you clarify that they could still ride their ones that go 2 miles an hour on the sidewalk, correct?
There are some state regulations about scooters and stuff like that should not be on the sidewalk.
These are the lower speed ones that we're talking about.
Okay. Yeah, and if any resident does have questions regarding those, and I'm not, I know that's a new topic.
Yes.
And I know there's also, we're looking at possibly researching too about electric bicycles. You see those a lot too, and I have seen a couple incidents too on the street that's bringing a great concern, and I know some of our local neighbors are starting to restrict those in their cities and towns. So that is something that we're looking at also. But if anybody has a question, the best thing to do is call the police department and we'll give you details, especially the parents should do that. And we'll give them information on proper safety and everything regarding those vehicles.
I appreciate it. And then maybe when we go back to school, I know they love to ride them to school. So maybe some in-service at school, that would be great. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other matters on the agenda? Yes, Alderman O'Brien.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, or Madam Mayor. As also based on public comment this evening, I haven't done this in the 6 years I've been on council. I'm wondering if there's a way we can bring last fall's ordinance that we passed regarding, I think there's full agreement on the kratom, tieptitine, but the THC is because it is, even some of my peers tonight, that's not necessarily a establishment I visit, but I see that potentially it might be an overreach of the government by, if I take my $20 at the end of the week and buy scratchers, somebody else buys their liquor, somebody else buys cigarettes, is I want to see, number one, more education, is that also I'm not sure that it's having the intent that we were hoping for, since my understanding too, and some outside research I've done, as also Mr. Torchman mentioned this evening, is it can be ordered online and delivered. My understanding is also if it's a company based across in another town, but they buy it online, but then they physically hire an Uber driver or somebody to drive it to my residence, I'm within the way our ordinance is written. That's what I'm hearing. I'm certainly not the attorney. I'll turn Attorney Wolf or staff. I'm just wondering as of July, because I don't know that it's having the impact that we had wanted to it, and my understanding too is it's just shifted where items were sold in the city to a different location in the city that's still able to sell. So I just like if we could revisit, but I'd like to narrow it, and that's my request here, not having done this before. If we can narrow it just to this THC portion, because I think there's agreement. Tieptitine and kratom has nothing good to do, and from what I've looked at too, the state seems to be remaining neutral on this for the foreseeable future. So I don't know if I can make a request if that goes on July or August. I know the July draft's out there. August might be better, will allow staff time to research. just if we could rediscuss the THC portion.
Sure. So Alderman O'Brien, we'll have, I think, staff maybe provide a report to the council members before bringing it to a committee of the whole. And that, I think, we'll see if then you have some questions that might be answered. Contrary to the public comment that was provided this evening, you can purchase cannabis items, including Delta 8 THC and other synthetics, but you have to have a cannabis license to do so. So right now, Nature's Care is the cannabis licensed dispensary within the city of Rolling Meadows. So to state that individuals who are purchasing those products are leaving the city is a misrepresentation, because those products are still within the borders of the city of Rolling Meadows under very specific regulations and licensing requirements. So the council had come to an agreement that we do see a patchwork. There does appear to be some inconsistency when it comes to synthetic THC. And so for that reason, we had a unanimous resolution that called for regulation at the state level, just because we don't necessarily have the facilities or the wherewithal of the FDA to be able to make those kinds of calls. And so I think that there are a lot of different items that we could then provide through maybe a staff report to council, and then go from there.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Yes, Alderman Boucher.
Two things real quick. The library also just did their audit review, and they got very positive results back from their auditing. So it's been a big month of audits for me. And then they did just kick off summer reading, and they had a very large turnout. So they're very excited about what summer reading has to offer. Also, since we are within a week of the 4th of July, I'm going to put Chief on the display again. The only thing I'm hearing about right now is fireworks, fireworks, fireworks. We have a large firework operating, system in Ward 5. And I'm not just talking like pretty fireworks. I'm talking bombs going off about 10, 11 o'clock at night. So if you could just reiterate to our citizens what the ordinance/rules are with fireworks, that would be delightful.
Sure, thank you, Alderperson Boucher. One of my favorite holidays, 4th of July. I think in 39 years, I think I've only been off like 2 of them. It is one of our busiest times of the year. Our call volume typically doubles on the 4th of July, and a big reason of that is illegal use of fireworks. I am pleased to report, though, that in the last couple of years, we have seen about 20%, 30% reduction in illegal fireworks calls. However, one is too many. So if residents do see or hear fireworks, definitely call 911. They are illegal in Rolling Meadows. You can't possess them. You can't ignite them. You could receive a citation with a fine anywhere from $25 to $150. In addition to that, they're also against state law. And you could also be charged with a misdemeanor all the way up to a felony, depending on the volume and quantity of how much fireworks. So like I said, residents, visitors in Rolling Meadows, it is against the law to ignite those fireworks. Residents, if they see that, please call us. We'd be more than happy to come out to whether cite the residents for that. We also proactively, we do go to some of our previous offenders, residents, before the holiday, and we do remind them about that ordinance. We also do public service announcements. We do have that on our social media page about fireworks. And even more important than that, they're against the law, they're against city code, they're dangerous. I know every year several people are killed in this country by illegal use of fireworks, and about 10,000 people actually visit the emergency rooms for injuries sustained from fireworks, loss of fingers, hands, arms, eyes, and so forth. So even more important that they're illegal, they're dangerous. So residents, please just go to our city fireworks display, which we will be having, and we will have that staffed by our fire department and the police department to help ensure everybody's safety. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other items for matters not on the agenda? Hearing none, looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you. Oh, sorry, what would we have on here? Alderman Boucher for the first and Alderman O'Brien for the second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? The ayes have it, and this meeting is adjourned at 8:30 p.m. Thank you very much.